And starting off our first Giant Monster Monday, we're going to be comparing two of my very first Godzilla figures, both coming from Trendmasters. On the left is the Godzilla Wars Supercharged Godzilla, and on the right is the Godzilla 1998 Thunderale Godzilla. Or if you want to go with how he's been rebranded, just call him Zilla. Let's take a closer look. Now this Thunderale Godzilla is one I have had for quite a long time. I got it the summer of 1998, right after seeing the American Godzilla movie, and let's face it, back then I was too young to realize how bad it was. But I took a trip to New York. It was one of the very first times I'd ever been there, if not the first time. And having just watched the movie, I got to look at all the places that this guy had destroyed in the film. And that was kind of cool as a kid. And I remember going to, I believe it was still FAO Schwartz at the time, and picking this guy up and carrying it back to my grandparents' house with me on the train ride home. So this figure definitely, if nothing else, has a little sentimental value for me. Comes with a display base. It's not too shabby. It's kind of a New York street. There's some cracks going in here. You see the lanes of the road. It's kind of a mottled look on it to look like asphalt. It has the Godzilla logo right here. It's all hollow on the underside. Copyright 1998, of course. Interestingly enough, copyright Toho, not copyright TriStar or anything. That's kind of interesting. It's cheap. It's very much a toy display base, but it's not that bad. And hopping right in here, we're going to take a look at the Thunderale. And this is very badly cared for by me. As I said, I was a young kid when I got this thing, and the tail cracked and broke, revealing the internal mechanism, and I glued it with some probably less than preferable glue. It's definitely this kind of epoxy gunk. Yeah, it did not work too well. You can even see here, it's still ripped back here. So I'm going to be a little gentle with this, but I am going to activate the mechanism. We can see if the Thunderale still works. I really don't know as I'm recording this. But here, his left arm, you'd actually move the arm, and that will activate the Thunderale. So let's try this. Up. Goes one way, and it goes the other way. So we have the swishing tail effect of the Thunderale Godzilla. And that's about all I'm going to mess with that. For the sculpt, he's not too shabby. He looks enough like that TriStar Zilla, the Geno, as people have called him, Godzilla in name only. He's got some bright orange eyes, has that iguana head going on. Just a very squared off face, but he has his exposed teeth. I like the paint on the skin. They really mix the kind of grays and silvers and kind of blue hues to it. On the back, he has his really lame version of the Godzilla spines, the larger shoulder spikes, and then kind of the smaller middle row, which is basically inverted from the Japanese Godzilla. They have a blue hue to them. They look pretty good. There's some large screw holes back here, but was a cheap toy made in the 90s. I'm not too surprised. One place this figure does suffer is a lot of the plastics seem to be different. The chest and head seem to be made of a decent quality plastic. Even the spines are a little rubberized, so they're a little different. The tail's a different rubber than that. But these arms always seem to be made of a cheaper plastic and didn't retain the paint as well. It kind of looks like it's scuffed up and mottled a little bit. So not the best look for his arms to this day. But there are some good warty bumps on it. He has his 4 clawed hands on either side. Go down to his legs. Legs very similar to the arms, just don't look nearly as good. Didn't hold the detail nearly as well. He has his little back bent leg. And that infamous foot that we were all told was larger than that bus or whatever we happened to see advertising the film. So there that is. For articulation, we didn't get a whole lot. We have an articulated jaw. It is spring-loaded, so you pull it down and just snaps right back up. That pink on the inside, by the way, is kind of lame. They could have done a better color. On his right arm, you can swivel at the shoulder and then bend at the elbow and rotate the wrist. But this arm will kind of stay in its position. It's a little spring-loaded. It won't completely stay, but it's not really meant to be moved except for the action feature. You can rotate at the wrist. The hips can move forward and back. Bend at the knee. It's a ratcheting joint, but it only has 2 clicks. And then we can rotate at the ankle. The figure stands best on his display base, but he can stand on his own 2 feet, which is kind of surprising, to be honest. On to the Supercharged Godzilla. This was from the Godzilla Wars line that Trendmasters put out in the 90s. This was before the 98 Godzilla film, and this was actually kind of tying into the Heisei era films, the 90s era Japanese films. They introduced a lot of figures based on those looks, and they kind of updated some of the 60s and 70s characters that weren't updated with the modern movies to have, I guess, what they thought was a more modern aesthetic. Some of them were a little weird. I actually never ended up with any of the ones that didn't actually fit in with the correct time period here. But as I said, this was the Godzilla Wars line. This was kind of a sequel to the Godzilla King of the Monsters line. And while I believe the smaller figures had some unique pieces to them, the larger figures were really just the same. It might as well have been the exact same toy line. But since we did the action feature first on the other figure, let's take a look at this guy's action feature. Here on the back, he has a little on-off switch. And then when we flip that on, he has a motion sensor in his chest. And you get... Alright, apparently he doesn't want me to talk, because apparently talking is setting him off. I believe this is only supposed to be motion activated, but somehow sound is doing it. But he will roar, and it's an okay Godzilla roar. It's definitely trying to be correct, and his eyes and mouth all light up, which is a pretty cool effect there. But you can tell the head was just made in a translucent plastic because, I don't know if you saw it there, but there's actually little spots around the head where you can see just a white light flashing through. But hey, that's not too shabby, and the batteries in this thing have lasted forever. I don't know if I've ever changed the batteries in them, which probably isn't good, because they probably are a little corroded. But this, to me, kind of defined the definitive look of Godzilla, because this is the best representation of the character I had as a kid. The head sculpt we get is decent. It's nothing spectacular. It's obviously not nearly as accurate as the Monster Arts version, but he has a good look to him. He has little ears, the rows of spikes up here. I also looked a little dog-like. He's got the yellow teeth and the translucent red in his mouth that is very dusty right now. That's my bad. Also the translucent red eyes. And I said this was the Supercharged Godzilla. They had a regular one that was green, which actually isn't movie accurate. So this one's actually in a blackish skin tone, and it's much more movie accurate, which makes me really happy I got this one because I really didn't know at the time. But he's a very bulky, very beefy looking figure. He has muscular arms, kind of some skin folds in there that look a little more like the costume, but very bulked up looking. He's got these grasping angry hands with the yellow fingernails on them. Here on the back, we have his blue dorsal plates. They're all basically the same size, but it doesn't look too bad. I like the sheen on them. You can see the middle row is kind of popping up. This is actually the door for the battery compartment. There's a little screw at the top you'd undo, and this whole thing would come off, and that's where he keeps his batteries. Once again, just like the other figure, there's a lot of big bolt holes in him for keeping the figure together, which is a bit of a bummer, but kind of a sign of the times. His tail comes as a separate piece. This is like a softer vinyl-like material. I also kind of thought it looked like a pipe or something, but it still has all the little detailed spines on it. It just plugs right there into his butt, and you're good to go. There's a little bit of green on here. I wonder if I tried to put some, like, slime or ooze on him or something. I also had all this Ninja Turtle stuff as a kid. I wonder if that's what that's from. And then going down, we've got his big, beefy legs and his cool toes. I think they did a really good job detailing this figure. Now on the bottom of his feet, you can see what I've seen happen to a lot of people's figures in more vital parts, but you can see there's a lot of scuffing and just random kind of colors coming through. I've seen a lot of people have that on the body of their figure, so if you do end up buying one of these used, just really keep an eye out for just random scratches of color. For articulation, we don't get a whole lot. The head can move a little bit, but because there's electronics coming from the body to the head, you don't want to mess with it too much. The arms are on a swivel, so you can swivel a full 360. The legs as well are on a swivel, so they kind of come off at a V-cut. And technically, you can rotate the tail. So overall, what we're looking at here are two figures that represent a lot in terms of Godzilla figure development. It was basically these figures that kept my interest in Godzilla peaked through the 90s when I didn't have access to the new movies, but I'd heard of them. And when this guy's movie coming out was gonna be a huge deal for me. It was the movie I wanted to see that summer. And I bought so much stuff, or had so much stuff bought for me based around that movie, from novelizations to picture books to toys, t-shirts, everything. Posters. I had a 6-foot tall poster of that guy. And as I already mentioned with that, I have great memories of my trip to New York and getting that figure and going back to my grandparents' house that night and getting pieces of construction paper and building little buildings for him to smash apart. And it makes it hard for me to give my normal recommend or not recommend rating to these figures. So for Giant Monster Mondays, I'm switching it up a little bit. We're gonna have figures that fall into the cult classics category, which basically amounts to a recommend. And we're gonna have figures that fall into the Mystery Science Theater fodder category, which is basically a not recommend. So first off, the Supercharged Godzilla from Godzilla Wars, I'm gonna give it the cult classic status. It's still a decent sculpt, decent paintwork on it. Looks like what it's supposed to be. The articulation's not great, but it was a figure from the mid-90s. So, giving that one a pass. As for the Thunderale Godzilla, I have a little harder time doing that, mostly because he's from a movie that I've grown to hate a little bit. But the piece that's really gonna solely put him in the Mystery Science Theater fodder category is the fact that, despite the fact that some of the damage was done because I was a kid and didn't really take care of my stuff, he did not hold up over the years. Just from sitting on a shelf, I've already talked about how the paint is kind of deteriorated on parts of him and just doesn't look the way it should. And the fact that his tail basically rotted away and ripped and tore, and I obviously wasn't pushing it beyond the limits of what the figure itself can do. I also used the arm gimmick for him, so really the toy broke itself. So he's gonna be just ever so slightly demoted. Giant Monster Mondays is gonna continue on, basically one a week up until at least the release of the new American Godzilla film from Legendary Pictures on May 16th. And we'll kind of go from there and see if there's going to be more beyond that with new product or whatever. But just so I don't give you guys an Avengers-sized overload of giant monster figures, just keeping it to one a week for the most part. We're going to keep looking at other random Godzilla figures I have in my collection. So stay tuned each week for a new episode of this. I'll have normal reviews the rest of the week. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, the link's below. Until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews. As for the Trendmasters fig... Why do I keep saying Trendmasters fig? It's all Trendmasters.